The carnival stood silent under a bruised twilight sky, a desolate wasteland forgotten by time. The rusted Ferris wheel clawed at the sky like a skeletal hand reaching for salvation. Cracked and faded carousel horses stood frozen in eternal, silent gallops. Their painted eyes stared vacantly, reflecting the shattered dreams within. The air hung heavy, thick with the stench of decay and despair, an unspoken promise of something sinister. A lone crow cawed, breaking the eerie silence. Its mournful cry echoed through the emptiness, a harbinger of doom. The carnival awaited, its presence a chilling specter under the fading light, whispering tales of sorrow and eternal torment. A figure emerged from the shadows, a lone man, drawn by morbid curiosity. He walked cautiously, his heart pounded against his ribs, each step echoing in the stillness. The man, his name was Thomas, felt a shiver crawl up his spine, despite the summer night. He had heard the whispers, tales of the Cirque de Lamentations, a traveling carnival swallowed by darkness. Now, standing at its decrepit gates, he felt a sense of foreboding, an icy hand gripping his soul. The air grew colder as he stepped past the dilapidated ticket booth, its window shattered. Cobwebs clung to the rusty bars like ghostly fingers reaching out. A gust of wind blew past him, carrying with it the faintest strains of music, distorted and haunting. It beckoned him forward. Thomas hesitated. Fear warred with his curiosity. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. He would see what lay beyond. He would uncover the secrets of the Cirque de Lamentations. The carnival grounds were a labyrinth of twisted pathways and dilapidated tents. The silence was broken only by the creaking of the Ferris wheel and the rustle of unseen creatures in the shadows. Thomas walked on, each step filled with trepidation. He passed a booth, its sign a faded testament to happier times. "Test your strength," it proclaimed. The hammer lay on the ground, rotten and covered in dust, as if untouched for centuries. Another booth, this one with a cracked mirror. "See your future," it whispered. Thomas dared not look. He could feel unseen eyes watching him, their gaze heavy with sorrow and malice. A low moan cut through the air, sending chills down Thomas's spine. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, a chorus of tormented souls trapped within the carnival's embrace. He pressed on, drawn deeper into the heart of the Cirque de Lamentations. The whispers grew stronger. They swirled around him, murmuring tales of despair, of dreams shattered and souls lost. A figure emerged from behind a broken-down carousel. A clown, his face painted in a grotesque parody of laughter. Tears etched into the white grease paint. His eyes held a profound sadness, an eternity of sorrow reflected in their depths. He bowed low, his oversized shoes scuffing the dusty ground. "Welcome, welcome," he rasped, his voice a dry, crackling whisper, "to the Cirque de Lamentations, where joy is a forgotten memory." His words hung heavy in the air, thick with despair and regret. Thomas stared, both horrified and strangely mesmerized. He could see the sorrow etched into the clown's very being, the pain that permeated his every move. The clown gestured towards the darkness ahead. "The show is about to begin," he croaked. "But be warned, traveler. Once you enter, you may never leave." His laughter, devoid of joy, echoed through the desolate carnival. The big top loomed ahead, a tattered, once grand spectacle now faded and torn. Its entrance beckoned Thomas forward, a maw ready to swallow him whole. He hesitated, the clown's warning echoing in his mind. He pushed the canvas flap aside and stepped inside. The air within was thick, heavy with the scent of incense and decay. The only light flickered from a single spotlight, illuminating the center ring and the figure standing within it.
"Welcome," he boomed, his voice surprisingly strong. It echoed through the silent tent, to the greatest show of sorrow, the most tragic spectacle on earth.
The spotlight widened, revealing the rest of the big top. The once vibrant seats were now occupied by shadows, silent figures shrouded in darkness. Their eyes glowed with an unsettling light. The show began, a ghostly waltz performed by spectral figures, their movements jerky and uneven, like puppets controlled by unseen malicious hands. Their faces, visible beneath the pale moonlight filtering through the tent's holes, were frozen in expressions of eternal anguish.
Each movement accompanied by the sickening crack of bones, her limbs bending at unnatural angles.
His muscles straining, his face contorted in a silent scream of agony. His burden, Thomas realized, wasn't iron, but despair.
Their silence more terrifying than any applause. The air grew colder. thick with the palpable weight of sorrow and regret. The audience, the shadows, watched with chilling intensity.
The acts blurred, a macabre tapestry of suffering and despair. Thomas felt himself drawn deeper into the nightmare. He stumbled back, bumping into a small, cluttered booth. A sign above it flickered, "Fortunes told, truth revealed." An old woman sat within, her face a roadmap of wrinkles. Her eyes, though, were sharp and piercing. She beckoned him closer. Her voice, when she spoke, was raspy, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "You should not be here," she rasped. "This place, it feeds on despair, on the lost and the broken." Her gaze, filled with ancient wisdom and deep sorrow, held his. "They were once like you," she whispered, gesturing towards the ghostly performers. "Lured here, trapped by their own sorrow." Her words struck a chord of fear in Thomas's heart. "Leave now," she urged, her voice barely a whisper, "while you still can, before the Ringmaster claims your soul too." Her words jolted Thomas. He broke free from her gaze. The carnival, the haunting spectacle, suddenly became clear. No longer a mesmerizing horror, but a trap.
The ringmaster's gaze seemed to pierce through him, a knowing smirk played on his lips.
The shadowy figures in the audience turned towards him. Their eyes burned into him.
He turned to leave, but the exit was gone. The tent stretched endlessly around him. The air grew colder, the laughter of children distorted and chilling, echoing through the big top. The laughter turned into screams. Panic clawed at his throat. He was trapped. The Cirque de Lamentations had him in its grasp. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. He had to escape. But how? He ran blindly, past the ghostly performers, through the maze of tents. The carnival seemed to shift around him, paths twisted, leading him in circles. He was lost, hopelessly, terrifyingly lost. The shadows stretched, reaching for him with long, skeletal fingers. Whispers followed him, taunting him with his fear. They spoke of his regrets, his failures, his deepest fears. He tripped, falling to his knees. Despair threatened to engulf him. The carnival wanted him to give in, to surrender to the darkness. He could feel its icy grip tightening around his heart. But a flicker of defiance remained, a spark of hope in the face of overwhelming dread. He wouldn't let the Cirque de Lamentations win. He refused to become another one of its lost souls. He remembered the fortune teller's words, trapped by their own sorrow. The carnival fed on negativity, on despair. He had to fight it. He had to find a way to break free from its grip. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He thought of the good in his life, of his family, his friends, the love he held for them. He clung to those memories. Let them fill him with a light that pushed back against the darkness. He opened his eyes. The shadows seemed to recoil slightly. The whispers quieted, replaced by a faint humming, a sound of hope cutting through the despair. He stumbled to his feet. The carnival felt different. The grip on his heart loosened. He was not free yet, but he could see a way out. He followed the humming. It led him through the labyrinthine pathways. The carnival fought back. Illusions flickered, trying to confuse him. The ghostly performers reached for him, their touch cold and despairing. But he pressed on, fueled by the hum, by the light of hope. Finally he saw it. A faint glow in the distance. The exit. He broke through the last of the tents, stumbling into the cool night air. He gasped, collapsing onto the dew-covered grass. The carnival stood behind him, silent, watchful, but its power over him was broken. He had escaped the Cirque de Lamentations, but he knew, with chilling certainty, that he would never be free of it. The memory of the carnival, the chilling performances, the ringmaster's gaze would forever be etched into his soul. And the laughter, that distorted, haunting laughter, would forever echo in his nightmares.